Welcome, everyone. Come on into the room. Welcome, Dr. Rivera. I think I've just promoted you to a moderator as well. We'll get underway here in just a moment. Hello, Tiffany. Hello, Erica. Good evening, Thomas. Hello, Carrie. Hello, Deanna.
The key to your growth will be found at the end of the path. It's the star that will guide you from this moment on. Mother Nature has given you this challenge.
I'll turn it down a little bit.
Melissa. Oh, there we go. No problem, Melissa. We'll get underway in just a moment. Welcome, everyone. This webinar is being recorded, so if you'd like to access this recording after the event, it'll be shared on the Purdue Global Student Webinar calendar. There'll also be a takeaway at the end of the webinar that includes any of the links shared during the webinar, as well as a copy of the slide content. So welcome again. Welcome to tonight's webinar hosted by the Learning for Success Center. We're excited to be joining the Psychology Club tonight for a joint session. And our presenter tonight is Dr. Rivera, a licensed psychologist and academic department chair. Dr. Rivera will be discussing the importance of self-care for optimal mental health. She will be providing some essential skills to engage self-care and discuss the difference between self-care and self-soothing. So I know she has a lot of valuable information to share with us tonight. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to her now.
Thank you. It's good to see you all. It's good to spend some time with everybody this evening. I have a lot of slides I was going to say I have a lot of slides to get through, but my agenda is not to cover every slide necessarily. I'm more interested in having some dialogue with you all and answering some questions. This is sort of a hot topic, if you will. We tend to throw around this language of self-care a lot, and it can mean different things to different people. So please feel free to type your questions, comments, thoughts, reactions into the chat. And I will certainly do my best to answer any questions, and we can have some discussion. So having said that, this is what the goal is for tonight in terms of our learning outcomes. So we'll define self-care and discuss the benefits of self-care. We'll also talk about the challenges involved with self-care and how stress can impact us. Discover hopefully some strategies and some practices that you can use on an ongoing basis. And with that, really build and create a toolbox for self-care. So before we kind of jump in to what it might be, when you all hear the word or the words self-care, what do you think that means? So when you hear that, what do you think? What are your first reactions, and what might it mean? Taking time to take care of yourself, Tiffany, yeah. Being stress-free, Carla, good one. Mm-hmm. Doing something relaxing, getting enough rest, certainly prioritizing needs, filling your cup, that's right. Care for yourself like you would anyone else, that's a really good one, Rebecca, yep. Self-maintenance, being healthy, Carla, yes. Meditating and yoga, absolutely. taking time to take care of your physical health, yes, and stress management techniques for mental health. So oftentimes we cringe, or at least I know sometimes I do, and I know other people do cringe when we hear the words self-care, because it can often feel like it's being self-indulgent or selfish, right? We live in a world filled with social media. So we've got Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. I'm sure there's others, TikTok. There might be others that I'm missing. And so we're sort of, or can be, constantly chasing what we think self-care looks like. So is it that spa day? Is it the pedicure? Or the night out with girlfriends or guy friends? Or dinner out, or a long nap, right? So that's right, Kristen. Those things are not really self-care. Those things might be what I would call soothing in the moment. They certainly might initially, for a short period of time, reduce that sense of stress. But those things are really not considered self-care. So we'll talk about the differences between those things that might be self-soothing and what self-care is, and how it's different than that night out, or the spa day, or the dinner with your guy friends. That might be sort of blowing off some steam, perhaps, but not really and truly self-care. So self-care is taking an active and a proactive role in your overall health and wellness. So active meaning engaging in something really intentionally, and proactive doing something before you get to what we know as burnout, right? So this is our framework for certainly managing stress, all the life challenges we're faced with, professional burnout. So there's many of you here tonight are members of the Psychology Club and are interested in psychology and working with other people. So we want to prevent that type of burnout, as well as compassion fatigue. So what is compassion fatigue? That's another sort of popular term that's thrown around. What does compassion fatigue mean? Yeah, that's absolutely right, Tiffany. So essentially wearing yourself out as you're taking care of other people or somebody else. And we get so burned out, yes, it makes it difficult for us to engage in experiencing empathy for other people. Yep, so we're always doing things for other people, and then we get negatively impacted. And those of us in the helping profession are certainly at risk for compassion fatigue. So self-care is even more important for those of you that are going to go into a profession working with other people. Self-care is very empowering, right? We want it to create balance or equilibrium across all aspects of our lives, personal lives, social lives, work lives, so we can be our best and be fully present in every role that we play. So this is an activity that we deliberately do to take care of ourselves, but it's not necessarily that pumpkin spice latte as a treat, or not necessarily going and spending a weekend out with a group of friends, right, to blow up some steam. Yes, and that's a great one, Thomas. So we'll talk about that. mindfulness. So there's some kind of routine things that we want to think about. How can I build my own toolbox, and what is it going to look like for me? So this is going to create that foundation for being able to take care of ourselves in the long haul, right? Overall wellness in the long haul. So a lack of self-care in the helping profession can certainly contribute to burnout. We don't want that to happen. Depletion, we can have mental depletion, physical depletion, spiritual, emotional depletion, and that can lead us to be reactive in the moment and lead us to experience difficulty perceiving things accurately, challenges with regards to how we're making sense of the world, can reduce cognitive function, can reduce memory, interpersonal relationships become impaired, and the list goes on and on in terms of the negative impacts of depletion. So physical, mental, emotional, and certainly spiritual depletion as well. And this happens when we're not taking care of ourselves. I know many of you here, I put some psychology related things here because I know many of you are wanting to go into the helping profession because this is combined with the psychology club meeting. So being able to work with other people also means being a good role model. So you might not necessarily be sharing what you are doing for yourself with your clients, but clients somehow inherently know when the person they're working with, whether it's a counselor, a coach, some of you might be going into the ABA profession. Clients have really sensitive antenna, and so they know when the people they're talking to are taking care of themselves or stressed out, right? So we need to be able to role model this for our clients and the groups and the communities we serve, right? That's right, Carla. We do know our own kinds. That's absolutely right. Yep. Absolutely, Thomas. So super important, right, that you're taking care of yourself because you're working with a population that really needs you to be present, but you also need to role model that for the people that you're working with. So challenges to self-care can become negative patterns, and these negative patterns may become amplified, or we may get sort of what we call out of balance due to the stressors that we're experiencing on a regular basis, as well as intensify things, right? So again, those of you that are working with other people, and great point, Matthew, sometimes our family and friends know when we're suffering, right? And this can include things like working too much, obviously, stress, burnout, impaired boundaries, people pleasing. Many of you in this profession, just by nature of who you are, tend to be people pleasers as well as perfectionists. Life changes and transition, and then compassion fatigue. So these are things to become aware of. And if you notice yourself experiencing these things, these might be sort of flags like, uh-oh, I need to maybe take some inventory for my own self-care so I can hopefully address some of these things and get back into some balance. Yeah, our animals know, absolutely. Next slide, please. So the stress response. So who knows what this is like physiologically in our bodies? So does anybody remember this maybe from Intro to Psych or some other class that you might have taken? So what happens in our body physiologically? So this is a physiological response. Yep, so your heart rate definitely increases. What else? Other things. We eventually start to shut down. Our senses increase. Sweating. And does anybody remember what part of the nervous system gets activated when we're stressed. So the nervous system kind of branches off. So, and there's two sorts of branches within the nervous system. We have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, right? And so when we're stressed, that's right, Christian, the sympathetic nervous system gets activated. And this is the part of the nervous system that is going to do all of those things that you all mentioned. So when your sympathetic nervous system is turned on, whether that's physical stress, running a marathon, or emotional stress because you're dealing with something difficult at school, yes, cortisol will certainly get released. Your pupils will dilate so you can see things better. You will start to sweat more to keep your body cool so you can respond properly. Somebody said everything shuts down. That's right. Your digestive system shuts down because you don't need to be thinking about having to pee or go to the bathroom when you need to run from something dangerous. So way back when, in the very first Intro to Psych book, the old example that we always used, right, with the fight or flight response was there's a brown bear coming after you, and your body has to essentially decide, am I going to run really fast from this brown bear, or am I going to try to fight it? Either way, your sympathetic nervous system has to respond the same way. So this is essentially how we're physiologically hardwired, right? So 100 years later, when we are emotionally stressed because we have a paper due, a family to take care of, shifts at work to have to get to, bills to pay, and we can go on and on, our body responds exactly the same way, even though there's no brown bear there anymore, right? So your pupils are going to dilate. Your digestive system is going to shut down. Your body's going to start to sweat so you can stay cool. Your heart rate is going to increase so you can run. As all of that is happening, activated because of the sympathetic nervous system, what's happening? What else is happening to your body? What other sorts of things are happening in this fight or flight response? And if you don't know, you can certainly take some guesses. Yeah, adrenaline is certainly moving pretty quickly through your body. And those are all those chemicals. Somebody mentioned cortisol, adrenaline. Your blood pressure is going to go up. Yeah, so essentially, as all of those things are happening, as the sympathetic nervous system is working, your body has to try to figure out how to respond. And so on the flip side, right, because of this, you might have insomnia, or you might have some memory loss because you can't be holding everything while you're completely stressed out. When your digestive system shuts down because of the sympathetic nervous system response, people get ulcers because we are not designed for our digestive system to be shut off too much of the time. So people that are chronically stressed all the time, your body has to figure out how to respond, right? And essentially takes the negative impact of this. So this can become debilitating when there's no outlet for this sort of extra energy. And so this is a chronic stress response. Yes, we become disoriented. We get physically sick. The immune system is going to take a hit, right? So this is your body's way of responding. And so we then have to take some active role to manage all of this, okay, which is very different than that afternoon at the spa, right? That's not going to manage these things on a long-term, ongoing, regular basis. So that's why we say self-care is an active and a proactive role, right? Yes, migraines, headaches. We can probably list off all of these things. Yep. So the impact of stress can affect us in all kinds of different ways. So can be characterized into 4 different categories. So we have the physical side, things that you've all mentioned, headaches, fatigue. A lot of people get breakouts in their skin, infection, muscle twitches. And then we have the mind, right? Sort of what we're experiencing psychologically, worrying about things, maybe making a decision too quickly, not thinking things through, impaired judgment, nightmares, being negative, or a hard time making a decision. So those are the psychological responses. And then we have the emotional side, which is obviously impacted there with how we're psychologically experiencing things, depression, apprehension, feeling sort of irritable or fussy, loss of confidence, maybe low self-esteem, apathy, not caring, right? That's where that compassion fatigue is seen there. Alienation, so cutting yourself off from other people. And then behaviorally, so all of these things are then going to inform behavior, insomnia, loss of appetite, being accident prone or clumsy, leading, all of this is going to lead to negative, what we think might initially be ways to manage the stress. These are negative coping tools, drinking more, using illicit substances, smoking. So what's important here to understand is behavior, the mind, the body, and the emotional piece are all very connected, and they interact and inform one another. And we can kind of get into a negative cycle. So as we start to experience the stress and we're having some psychological responses, that can then lead to behavior that might not be optimal, which can then lead to difficult emotions, and we kind of get caught. Somebody mentioned rabbit hole earlier. We can get caught into this. And so it's important to know what for ourselves, what our own kind of red flags are, so we can start to turn things around. Great point, Courtney. So it's great that you know that, and now you can put some things into place to work on it. So red flags. So you all have to think about, what are your personal warning signs? So if you're experiencing any of these, or maybe some things in addition, what can you do to, one, know that you've identified them, so that's awesome, and then what do you need to put into place? So are there other red flags or warning signs that are not listed on the slides, on the slide here, that some of you might be experiencing or know somebody who experiences these things? So driving, yes, that's kind of that irritability, right? When everybody's making you mad, and that's a flag to turn inward. Great point, very insightful, Thomas. That's awesome, Courtney. Making yourself mentally healthy. Yep. Junk food. That tends to be my go-to, Marianne. So my red flag is too many. I'm like a salty junk food person. So too many chips and crackers. Then I know, there's something going on here. Very common, right? And I actually think there's some research behind that. When people go to either sugar or salt. Yep. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, so benefits. So we've talked kind of around this. So some benefits are being your best, right? Just being your best. So being your best at work, being the best in your relationships, maximizing your potential. So being the very best you that you can be, improving the quality of your life, sustaining wellness, and that might mean sustaining long-term recovery or sustaining long-term career satisfaction for those of you that want to go work with other people. Thank you, Professor Colley. Yes, so we have the Student Assistance Program. So when you're noticing those red flags, right, that's when you can reach out to our no charge, available 24 hours a day Student Assistance Program. And she put the link there in the chat. Thank you. That's absolutely right, Courtney. So if you know you want to go into a field where you're going to be faced with these things, now's the time. Now's the time to manage this stuff. So one of the greatest gifts that I ever had when I was in graduate school many years ago, many decades ago, we had to do, it was mandatory when I was in grad school, mandatory that we had to do therapy. And we had to do 40 sessions, almost a year of therapy. But I remember a professor said to me, take advantage of this, right? You take care of your issues now, then when you go on later and work with your clients, you will have your stuff, hopefully, under wraps, right? So now's the time to be taking care of yourself. This is a gift of being in this profession. For those of you that want to go into the helping profession, right? Take advantage of this now while you can. Next slide, please. All right, so 5 essentials. Okay, you'll see here, there's nothing here about a latte, a spa, a pedicure. There's nothing on here about a guy's night out. Nothing on here about a girl's night out. And I'm not saying those things are bad, because they're not. They just don't really encompass fully self-care. Right, so 5 essentials. Sleep. Most people need around 7 hours of sleep a night, give or take an hour. Exercise. The research shows we need at least a solid 30 minutes a day. Eating well, right? So less junk food, less sugar, less carbs, more whole grains, fruits and vegetables, and water. Relaxation, quiet time, and connection. Connection is truly that connecting with others. So who here knows what is the #1 predictor of suicide? If you don't know, take a guess. The #1, you got it. Yes. Isolation. Isolation kills. The #1 predictor of suicide is isolation, which is why what age demographic is at most risk for suicide? It's not 12 to 16, it's not 13 to 20. That is right, Deanna, 65 and older. Yes, it's the elderly, because those people, that demographic, is lonely and isolated, which is exactly why connection is one of those 5 essential self-care strategies. So I saw somebody asked a question, what do we do if we live alone? Or what do we do if we're not sort of routinely connected to people? There's a lot of people that have large families and tend to be in established communities that are lonely. So being around other people doesn't necessarily mean you're automatically connected. We have to take an active role in maintaining a healthy quality connection with somebody else, right? So a great example there, Matthew. Yeah. So it's figuring out how can I build this in? Does that look like a conversation with somebody? Does it mean that I have to carve out time at the dinner table with family members? Does it mean, yes, that I'm going to calendar in spending time with somebody, meaningful time? Does it mean I need to get a pet, right? So pets are part of our families and can also be a self-care component, and connecting with a pet is just as valuable as connecting with another person, right? So think about those things, those 5 essential things. So sleep, 7 to 8 hours. So ways to do this. You want a regular sleep schedule. So sleep hygiene is imperative to good sleep. So cultivating that sleep ritual, whether it's journaling before bed or reading a book or having a cup of tea. At nighttime, you want to limit that caffeine and sugar. Utilizing breathing, listening to music, something, again, that's relaxing. Minimizing light or noise. I've read some studies that show even the blue light, oftentimes from a device, can negatively impact sleep. So taking all the electronics, right? Taking all of these gadgets out of the bedroom, right? Not, believe it or not, they're not helpful. Proper nutrition also can impact sleep in a healthy way. So if we don't eat well, then that's going to have a physiological impact on us, which may then negatively impact sleep. There's a lot of research that shows doing things on devices, and I know this is really hard for you all because you're students and we're all on now, right? It's 9 o'clock at night and we're all on. So do we need, after seminar, do we need to take some time away so we can decompress and let our brains recover from the light and also everything that's required to engage in school? And there is a link here on the slide. In the interest of time, I'm not going to click on it, but it's going to take you to a resource that we have here at PG to practice good breathing and mindfulness through the Learning for Success Center. All right. Do I practice self-care? Are you asking me, Thomas? Of course, yes. So I do, and it's hard. I will be the first to admit. There's some days where it feels like I don't have time, and I think that's what everybody says, right? I don't have time. But I do, absolutely. In fact, today, I'll tell you guys today at around, I don't know, like 5:30, my kids and my husband were heading out for a bike ride. And I was like, oh, you know, it's you guys go. I'm just going to stay back and take care of some things. And they left and the house got quiet. And I thought to myself, you know what? No, I'm not going to take care of some stuff around here. I need to go take a break and do some things for myself and get my exercise in. So I went out and I did about 30. I ran my neighborhood, couple miles, just over 2 miles, and was outside for about 30 minutes. So it's imperative, right? But we have to sometimes, like today for myself, kind of force ourselves into that, right? Because it's easy just to say, well, I don't have time. Oh my gosh, yeah, this is a part of human existence, right? We all struggle with this. This is what makes us human. And typically in those times when we don't want to engage in self-care is often when we need it the most. So it's about, putting it in the calendar, logging it in, and giving ourselves a little bit of that push, especially in those moments when we don't want to. So speaking of, exercise 20 to 30 minutes a day, right? That's going to reduce our body's physiological response, which we get tense, right? So that's why exercise is so important. It's not just to look good as summer comes, right? Or to stay healthy in terms of cardiovascular health. Those are obviously very important benefits, the health benefits, but this is to reduce the tension, release negative thoughts, reduce anxiety, and boost self-esteem, right? So this might mean, like I did this evening, going for a jog. It might mean going to the gym, taking a walk, going biking, right? The list goes on and on. Gardening, martial arts. There's another link there for yoga or stretching that everybody will get. So we're going to send these slides out as a PDF after tonight's session. So this will take you to the Learning for Success Center. So you can take a look at those resources. Eating. We've talked about this a little bit, right? So this is how we create that healthy and well-balanced life. We cannot function without sustenance. And eating, it can be one of those red flags that we talked about. So some people might undereat, some people might overeat, and some people might not eat healthy when we're stressed. So think about your own eating habits and what you tend to lean to when you're stressed, and try to think maybe one, because we want this to be realistic, right? You can't just all of a sudden overnight rapidly change your diet, but one thing that you can build in, right? So often that is drinking plenty of water, right? So I have my water, I usually leave it on my desk and try to, for myself, loosely measure that I'm getting in my 8 glasses a day. Do not skip meals. Know what your own food sensitivities are, and then obviously fruit, vegetable, but again, you're not going to overhaul your diet overnight. So we want all of our goals to be realistic. So think about one thing that you can implement. That's great, Courtney. Yeah. So that's a really good point. One task that you took on this year, and if you can have somebody with you to hold you accountable, that's even better too. More water is sort of an easier one. Yeah, I think easier to manage, less Diet Coke. So for me, in full transparency, this is more water and less, and Dunkin' Donuts isn't paying me, less coffee, right? So I'm a big coffee drinker, for those of you that know me. So it's about more water, less coffee. All right, so relaxation. Research shows if we connect with nature, whether that is going for a hike outside, if you live by the water, I live in Florida, if you go to where the water is, if you go sit in a garden, if you go walk on the beach, if you go look at some trees, if you go smell the flowers, we can go on and on and on about all of the fantastic environmental things, places, opportunities around us, connecting in one way with nature, dramatically has an impact on reducing our stress. So again, it's not about the pumpkin spice latte. It's not about the night out. It's not about the facial, right? Connecting with nature dramatically reduces stress. We spend how much for the most part in the United States? How many hours do we spend indoors a day? Somebody take a guess. Too many for sure. Yeah. 97% of our day. When, again, we are not built for that. Believe it or not, we are not built to be looking at screens as much as we do. And I know we're all doing it now. And these things are convenient. There's multiple benefits to being connected to technology. But we also have to take into consideration how are these things inadvertently impacting us. So can we, again, build it into our day to go and spend, it's only 20 minutes outside will dramatically reduce the negative impact of being indoors. Yeah, I'm guilty of it too, Rebecca, absolutely. Because I work from home, right? So I'm here in my office on my computer screen. And so I do things like after meetings, certainly at the end of today, like I did today, really try to make a point to go outside, even if it is only for 20 minutes or 10 minutes. In most countries, things aren't scheduled in either, right? So we, as the controllers of our own destiny, have to, again, think about that and build it in, right? And it doesn't have to be spending hours. I'm not talking about hours and hours outside, just going outside for 10 or 20 minutes. So spending time in nature, walking, hiking, sitting outside, certainly taking a hot bath is relaxing. Breathing exercises, yoga, reading, journaling, listening to music, engaging in some creative task. And again, there's a link there to the Academic Success Center for how to do these things. And these are not, again, they don't have to be long, drawn out things. Connection. So we all talked about isolation and how isolation kills. So being with other people or other animals, peer support, mentorship, getting involved with a community, whether that's a church community, a faith-based community, a recovery community, and finding what works for you, even if you're somebody who doesn't naturally gravitate towards other people, but finding something that helps you feel connected, maybe that will lead to a deeper connection with yourself as well. Next slide, please. Great point, Courtney. Yeah, so we have the mentorship program here at PG, and some of you might really benefit from getting connected with a mentor in the mentee role, and many of our mentors were once mentees. Going to a club meeting is a great way to stay connected. And you're absolutely right. Yes, Professor Colley, there's only so many hours in a day, so we have to think about how can I do these things in a limited amount of time. So Deanna, I would reach back out. I know Professor Colley is here tonight. You can reach out to her. I'm so sorry, I forget who the chair is. of the mentor program, but we'll certainly make sure you get matched up with somebody. So additional self-care tips, and then we'll maybe take a little break for questions. So recognizing, right, there's a limit to what we can do. We might have to say no, right? Knowing yourself better will allow you to take inventory of what you can and can't take on. Trying not to take work home. All of you have to obviously take schoolwork home, but leave some time for that transition between work and home, which going back to my evening today, which was why for me, I didn't go on the bike ride, right? I let them go. I went for my jog, which allowed for that transition. So when we all came together as a family, I had time to decompress myself. So explore and practice some different stress management techniques. Get good exercise, do something fun, but figure out what works for you, right? What works for you might not work for your neighbor. What works for your neighbor might not work for you or the next neighbor. Reminding yourself, if you're in the field, I have here peer recovery coaches. It might not necessarily be for peer recovery, but in the field, in the mental health profession, in the helping profession, that we can't always fix things for everybody. We can't always solve other people's issues. We can be supportive, we can be helpful, but we might not be able to completely resolve things. We can do our best. Share your perspectives with your community. Spend time with people outside of your profession so that work life doesn't become everything. Next slide, please. All right. So toolbox. So what are 10 things you can do in 5 minutes or less that can support you? Deep breathing, perfect. Yoga, perfect. Calling a friend, great one. A quick healthy snack, I like that too. My go-to is an apple. Journaling, I think I have 5. Meditation, drinking some water, that's a very good one. I love it, playing with your cat, yes. I usually have a cat somewhere in here with me, but he's not in here right now. Taking a hot bath. Might not be able to do that in 5 minutes unless it's really super quick. I like that. Breathing before a test. Sitting outside, yes. Drinking some tea. So you can start jotting these things down. And oftentimes what I do with people that I work with is have them write it on an index card or like a Post-it, right? Something like this that they can then keep in their wallet or pocketbook, or keep it on their desk. And then when they're feeling completely overwhelmed, they can just look at, oh my gosh, now I have 10 things. I can go get a drink of water, or I can go step outside, or I can grab my cat. No problem, Courtney. It's good to see you. All right, so let's stop here. There's still a few slides on here, but let's stop here for questions. I want to be respectful of everybody's time and make sure we have an opportunity to have a chat at the end and answer any questions. So what questions do people have? Or comments, thoughts, reactions? I like that one too, Tasha, a gratitude check. Any questions? I see people are typing. I'm going to put my email in the chat box while we are wrapping up. Good, Melissa. Glad your questions and concerns were answered. So next week at this time, I believe Dr. Lisa Phillips will be talking on creativity. Is that right? Did I remember that accurately? I don't have the agenda pulled up in front of me. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Let me flip ahead. I've got the schedule here. The upcoming sessions. Yes, so next week it'll be an earlier time, 7 p.m. Dr. Phillips will be presenting on creativity and wellness. And then the next week, Tuesday at 7, will be Dr. Julie Poole on transforming obstacles into opportunities. So we hope you can join us for those sessions as well. I did see a question come through here from Deanna. How long do you need to stick with a change before changing another small thing? I think that's a good question.
That is a great question. I think there's some variability in that, but we know consistency is key. So we don't want to change too much all at once. So the research shows 21 days to form a habit. So 3 weeks, I would say on average 3 weeks, because then by the time 3 weeks has passed, that should be considered a habit, if you will. And then you can move on to incorporating something else. Great question. Some of it's going to be on what the change is and how difficult or not that was for you, and what the next thing is that you want to change and how difficult or not that is. Which is why we tell people don't try to do everything all at once, because then what happens is it's not sustainable. We get frustrated and we give up. But on average, to answer your question, about 3 weeks.
Great, thank you. I saw earlier that Professor Colley shared the link for the Student Assistance Program, but I wanted to be sure to share that here as well. And with that, I've also included a link for the takeaway for this session. So that's a PDF copy of all the slides here tonight. All of the links that were on the slides will be active in that, so that you can have those right at your fingertips. I'm also going to share with you a link for the exit survey from the Academic Success Center. I'm so grateful to the Psychology Club for letting us join them tonight and having this joint session with the Psychology Club and the Learning for Success Center. And so we'd love to get your feedback about this session, what other topics you might be interested in hearing about, and days and times that are great for you. We really appreciate Dr. Rivera for making the time and giving her energy and time to the Learning for Success Center tonight for this presentation. It was so valuable. I think self-care is something, like you said, it's a hot word we hear all the time, but to really dig into what it means and what we can really do to care for ourselves, I think is so helpful. So thank you so much, Dr. Rivera, for this presentation. And thank you everyone for coming tonight, for joining us. And we hope that you'll be able to attend some of our future sessions. In addition, we're doing 15 minutes of mindfulness every Monday for the month of May. And so coming up this next Monday on May 16, we'll be doing an affirmation on concentration and just spending 15 minutes together being mindful. So we hope to see you there, and we hope to see you at our future webinars. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Have a great night. Feel free to reach out if there's anything else, other questions, or anything else anybody would like to discuss.